So, Chapter 1 Introduction. Sport in general is an activity that involves physical exertion and skill in which a team or an individual compete against each other for a form of entertainment. Okay, so what is sports tourism? Tourism combines both sporting and leisure activities, typically attracting tourists to exciting destinations that offers whether natural or physical attractions. For example, Malaysia held WFSA in Asia that actually attracted 2,000 football clubs from 50 countries. Now, when we talk about esports or electronic sports, first we wonder what is it? Electronic sports has also become one of the most contributors in tourism industry. So esports consist in game playing, spectating games. According to Patel 2017, approximately 148 million esport fans around the world are a spectator of this sport, with cash prizes in millions. Malaysia also recently held an event called Malaysia Cyber Games 2018. Research issue. So the acknowledgement from government of Malaysia towards esports benefits and development has grown and gained attention. It was then said by the former Minister of Finance Lim Guang Eng an allocations of 20 million to develop local esports industry next year. The issue was then taken by the NST newspaper where esports associations welcomed 20 million allocations for local esports industry, hoping that the money will go in for the 2019 SEA Games and the development of esports regulations. This goes to the chance of research on how serious the youth are engaged in these esports activities until there's a 20 million of allocations put by the government for the development of esports. Moving on to the problem statement. There are few journals and articles that discusses and studies on the esports in general. However, there are limited studies as to why people engage in esports activities, especially among Malaysians. Objectives and research questions. As for the research objective, the study is to find out what is the relationship between esports value and the participation of esports. And it is also to identify the most influential motivations towards participation of esports. As for the questions arises from the study, it is the relationship between the push factor of esports value and the participation of esports, and which is the most influential esports value or motivations that brings on to the participations of esports. Theoretical framework. The push factors in esports values are in the aesthetic, escapism, and social interactions. So in the aesthetic value, it is the elements of beauty or gracefulness which are inherent to the sport. And as for the escapism, it is a way of an individual getting out of their daily life routine or reality. As for the social interactions, it is spectators of esports also gain social interaction with computer-generated bonds, which gives them a wider circle to associate with. And as for the dependent variable, it is the participations in esports activities. As for the participation in esports activities, it includes playing, joining a tournament, attending exhibitions, and even spectating e-games, engaging in esports activities. Significance of the study. So the reason behind this research or study is to help making people understand that esports is a part of sports like traditional sports. It is to contribute on to the idea or theory that esports should have the same amount of attention and acknowledgement, same as the sports, traditional sports. Now the next is to understand what are the push factors as to why people engage or participate in esports activities.
Chapter 2 Literature Review. Esport is a type of sport where the key characteristic of the sport is that it is facilitated by electronic system, which the feedback of the player and team as well as the output is moderated by interfaces between the player and the computer. Esports are also commonly referred as a competitive, whether it is a pro or amateur, video gaming, often organized by different leagues, ladder and tournaments where players usually belong to teams or other sporting organizations that are funded by various business organizations. The word esport have been used since the late 90s, and since then, the scene have grown rapidly around the globe. With a large number of Malaysian-born esport players, they have won thousands of dollars in prize money through tournaments. For example, Nova, who is a Malaysian professional Dota 2 player with approximate earning of 1,886,450 dollars. Another Malaysian PUBG mobile team, which is known as Yudu Gang, have won 172,000 in prize money and raised Malaysian name when they won the PUBG Mobile Pro League Spring Split 2020 in Southeast Asia. Motivation for esports. The revolution of online games wave into the world with the revolution of technology. According to Newzoo 2017, video gaming is an extremely popular leisure time activity with more than 2 billion users worldwide. The popularity of esports have boomed, especially with the number of spectators worldwide, with today's technological advancements helping along the way. According to Murphy 2009, with computers more readily accessible, video games have become more popular, and the consumption of esports has brought up questions as to why people spectate this event just like any other traditional game. The first one is the aesthetic aspect. According to Trail and James 2001, aesthetic refers to the element of beauty or gracefulness which are inherent to the sport. Next is escapism aspect. Escapism refers to the idea of an individual getting away out of their reality or daily life routine, according to Lin 2002, Papacarisi and Mendelson 2010, Whiting and William 2013. Lastly, social interaction aspect. Social interaction happen as the bond created that are mostly computer generated, which give the audience a wider circle to associate with. Chapter 4, Data Analysis. In this chapter, the finding of the analysis data collected in the survey are discussed based on the research question. The data obtained are based on the questionnaire that was distributed through an online survey Google form. The table shows a total number of 113 questionnaires were distributed to e-gamers. However, only 28 questionnaires were not valid to be used for this research. The number of 85 valid respondents were able to obtain by the researcher from the distributed questionnaire. Moving on to the descriptive statistic, the table shows that aesthetic aspects of esport are linked to the participation of esport. The result recorded the mean of 0.0816 with a standard deviation 0.10472 for aesthetic aspect of esport, which is higher than other two aspects. Next is escapism is significantly associated with the esport participation. The result recorded the mean of 0.0732 and standard deviation of 0.09712 for escapism aspect of esport. For social interaction aspect, the result recorded the lowest mean of 0.0608 with standard deviation 0.09541 respectively. The table shows the regression analysis. From the table, the aesthetic value is significant at 0.000. The value is lower than 0.05 p-value. Therefore, H null is rejected. It can be said that aesthetic value has a significant relationship with participation in esport activities. From the regression analysis table, the escapism value is significant at 0.000. The value is also lower than 0.05 p-value. Therefore, H null is rejected. So it can be said that escapism has a significant relationship with participation in esport activity. And lastly, so for social interaction value is significant at 0.000. The value is lower than 0.05 p-value. Therefore, H null is rejected. It can be said that social interaction value has a significant relationship with participation in sport activities.
Conclusion and recommendations. The implications of the research is that the study showed a result that part of the sample populations are positively linked to aesthetic appreciation and likelihood to participate in esports. The existing game developers in Malaysia can take note that game designs and gracefulness increases the chances or likelihoods for esports engagement. Now, the government Malaysia is also able to fund more research that are esports based, as the findings showcases that 52.9% of students are prone to esports activities and understands how the younger generations are able to benefit or become productive by these technological advanced games and entertainment. This study, however, is subject to limitations such as the sample error. In the beginning, the population used is UiTM Puncak Alam students with a total of 18,949 people. So the sample population would be 317. However, only 113 number of respondents were received and only 85 responses that were available to be taken for the SPSS screening. This is due to the fact that we had an issue on distributing the questionnaires specifically by papers onto each different faculties. And we only had to give out and distribute the questionnaires and surveys online when most of the students or part of the students in UiTM Puja Alam are back home and would have a unstable internet connection to answer the questionnaires. Therefore, the number of responses has only been 85, which means that the research were not able to generalize the whole population except investigate part of the sample population. Conclusion and recommendation. Majority of the respondents in the study agreed that the gracefulness of their favorite competitive video games as a form of aesthetic and has impact on their esports engagement. The study also aims to understand the behavioral intentions towards the participation of esports in tourism context. But future research could dive in deeper for intentions on participations of international esports tournaments, as there are many other aspects that should be taken into considerations for research of the behavioral intentions with specific motivational factors. An example of sports tourism is attending tournaments that is on international basis, and attending exhibitions and expos and calling out many other countries to come to exhibitions and expos of esports tournaments.